I'm always bitterly disappointed that women's rock groups are so bad, although there are rock groups coming up in the States who are trying to lay down a kind of heavy feminist rock. But it's nothing like the explosion of creativity that happened among the boys. You know, everybody had a guitar. The girls just somehow never picked them up.
Most of the girls we lost along the way because they got bored with it, or they didn't want to take time out for the dating, or they wanted to do something else, you know. I mean, I gave up most of my early life to the business, and a lot of women aren't prepared to do that. Rightly so, probably. I mean, very few make it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Suzi Quatro.
That's Suzi Quatro on American Bandstand.
Yes, she can. It's Suzi Quatro.
Here's Suzi!
She was the first and broke the ice and kicked the door for us gals.
She was such a pioneer in the quintessential rock and roll chick.
Back when we were first starting at 64, 65, 66, the girl bands were few and far between. Few and far between.
Of course, there were early trailblazers who were musicians, female musicians, playing instruments in rock bands. They were making great music, but in the shadows. Suzi was the one who really smashed it wide open and broke into the mainstream with that string of top 10 hits around the world. She was the first.
Did you start something nobody else did? Did you actually succeed at it? How long did the career last? Was there quality to what you did? Were you an innovator? Suzi was an innovator, absolutely.
It was just unbelievable. It was like, you know, that thing where your chills go through your body and you're just freaking out because it's like, did I really just hear this?
Suzi was authentic. When that young lady was in her leather with her guitar, that audience got crazy. And she's still doing it.
Young kids these days, you know, unfortunately for them, they don't really know Suzi. And that's a shame because they should. Especially anybody that wants to get into this business, they should study Suzi Quatro.
Most any successful artist would only see it in hindsight, but knowing the cost of fame and success, there's always a trade-off, a massive trade-off.
Huge.
Huge.
How does one reconcile themselves with that, knowing that you do pay a price that the public just don't see?
You have to say goodbye to a very comfortable, perfect existence. And I knew it taking it on. I knew it the first time I went on the road with the band.
Suzi Q, what's cooking with you?
WJR, the Goodwill Station, Detroit.
I was born Susan K. Quatro. My father's name was Arthur Quatro. My mother's name was Helen Quatro. You know, I just don't think my father wanted 4 dependent daughters. So he brought us all up very ballsy. And he loved my mom very much. They were together over 50 years. But my mom was more the strict one. I'm very close to my mom. I think she's the only one that really knew me. I mean, she knew me. Could never fool her. If I came in like 13, 14, after being out with some people and I'd had a beer or a cigarette or something, she'd be sitting 6 rooms away and she'd say, Susan, come here. I can smell smoke and I can smell the drink, and I couldn't lie. I am very much my mother's daughter morally. She was a Catholic lady and very strict. She gave me the tracks to run on for the rest of my life. So there's that part of me, and then there's the performer part I get from my dad.
I love that melody. I love that melody. Heart of my heart. Heart of my brings back a memory. Brings back a memory. When we were kids.
I was in a very musical family with 5 kids, and my father played various instruments in various bands, so we all grew up with a million music lessons. I took drums, I took piano.
We had a joyous life with our family. It was always sing-alongs around the organ, all that stuff.
Mickey had his own stardom when he was young. You know, he was a teenage prodigy and on national television.
Suzi got that entertainer gene. She had that charisma to draw people and tell jokes and be up front. Dad was very thrilled that we all went into music and followed his dream.
It was January 1956. The whole family were watching the Ed Sullivan Show. He brings out Elvis, and when he went, well, and I had my first light bulb moment at the age of 5 and a half. I'm going to do that.
She never was told not to. You know, no one ever said, you can't do this because you're a girl. She just thought, like, I want to be Elvis. It's rad, you know, let's go for it. And I think that kind of spirit is what makes rock and roll.
And it was right after watching the Beatles, us neighborhood girls got on the phone talking about how great they were, babbling at the same time. And Patty suggested, what about an all-girl band? And we all went, yay!
That first band was the neighborhood kids with the 2 sets of sisters.
And I remember it exactly. Nan went, I'm going to play the drums. Mary Lou said, I'm going to play rhythm guitar. Patty said, I'm playing lead. And I went, hello? She said, you're going to play bass. I went, okay. And I went and asked my dad, did he have a bass? And he gave me this. And I really did literally plug it in and just said, yeah. It was, for me, the real sort of pivotal point of my life, starting that band and being on that stage the first time, playing the 3 songs that we knew, 3 chords, 3 songs, same 3 chords. And I was up there with the bass, and I looked down, and I remember going, that's it. Here I am. This is it for the rest of my life.
The guitar always looked too big because she was so small. I'm surprised she didn't get a smaller guitar.
Here's this little woman, you know, petite, playing this enormous heavy bass and just making it look like it was a feather.
As it went on, we got more and more popular. We had our little single out. Suzi was 14, I was 16. What a Way to Die. The Girls from the Garage arriving. Pre-punk, before punk. I mean, 5 Catholic girls singing a beer and drinking song. So it was very popular, as you can imagine.
We were at a gig, and we were on the floor of the gymnasium because they didn't have a stage for us. And somebody said, we can't see the singer, put her up on a table. So I was up on top of the table looking down at the crowd. So I was looking down at the people, and I just got all excited. I went, wow! And they went like that, and I went, oh, okay, now you like that. I left school very young. My dad let me go. I went on the road. So I've gone away from the normal school attitude, you know, with your girlfriends and the sleepovers and this and that. I'm on the road. I'm playing in nightclubs doing 5 shows a night. Not even supposed to be in there. And I remember thinking, oh my God, all my friends are at school and I'm not part of that life anymore? Wow. And there's a whole chunk of growing up that got missed out, which probably explains why I've got a big vulnerable streak in me, even though I'm a tough girl. That part never grew up. And there was almost like a nostalgic that I wanted to go back and be with them, but at the same time, I couldn't go back because I found what I wanted to do. I'm Suitcase Lizzie from Detroit City out to try my wings. I'm Suitcase Lizzie from Detroit City. I can do anything.
They have an advantage over other groups because they not only play so well, but they look so fine. The Pleasure Seekers.
When my eldest sister's husband started to manage the band, I remember him saying, we need to put most of the spotlights on Suzi because she's the front person. So I kind of always knew that and developed my craft on that premise.
My brother opened up the concert industry. That opened up big time. He brought in Hendrix. He brought in the Rolling Stones. He did festivals all over the region. He was the promoter.
In fact, when I had the agency, it was the easiest thing in the world for me to promote the girls. From 65 to 70, I put them on every show. I helped them get their record contract. I did everything.
I remember I came home after my first big time away, and I called all my friends to talk. Hi, I'm back. And they all didn't want to talk to me. I think there was a jealousy that I'd escaped.
When you're in Detroit, it's like, you know, the foot on the gas and it doesn't stop. And that's how it is. And the kids wanted to escape the car factories. They didn't want to end up there like their parents.
There's just nothing else to do there. In LA, you can go to the beach. In New York, there's so many distractions. In Detroit, there's nothing else to do. So you do what you can to get out of there.
We were the earliest female group that rocked hard, didn't play like girls, like tinky tinky, you know. Imagine the influence of Detroit.
Detroit was the hard rock capital. There was no city like Detroit. And the first time we saw the Pleasure Seekers, you know, they were all in white and they were all kind of like, I don't know what they were going for, but they couldn't get the Detroit out of them. They were still, you know, hard rock girls.
We did all covers and then we started writing. And when we started writing, we went to New York and we broke and we got signed to Mercury by the president of ABC Records.
I discovered pretty quickly that the rock industry had a lot of big mouths in it and a lot of danger elements and a lot of seedy agents and seedy clubs. And, you know, I saw through that pretty quickly. And so I developed a smart mouth, which kept the assholes away. We didn't get successful. The record didn't do anything, you know, we never had a hit. But people knew of us because we were an all-girl band and we were different.
We're touring, and played with everybody. We came back home and everything had changed. We were suddenly out of date.
When we did a festival in '69, it was all full of people like MC5, Frigid Pinks, Alice, just, you know, heavy, barefooted, blue jean. And we were a show band. So, you know, we came with our costumes on it. We died. We died.
All of a sudden, it was the heavy rockin' Detroit sound. Arlene got remarried. She ended up leaving the band to take care of her kids, and we brought in Nancy. She could wail her ass off. What a voice. I actually told Suzi, you're old news. We need a new voice.
I don't think they would have survived if they hadn't made a transition. It had to be made. Or you just stay a show band.
I never liked Cradle. It wasn't my band. I quite happily took a back seat because I said, let's get good. just became this good bass player and I jammed.
She says that, but it wasn't a backseat. It was both. I just felt at that time that we needed an influx of this heavier thing.
Suzi coming from Detroit, same thing for the Stooges, you know, also from Detroit. There was something really gritty about Detroit. And
there still is.
Yeah.
There is, for sure, a pulse in Detroit. And it's its own pulse. And it is a lot to do with the automobile industry and the black and the white and the rich and the poor. There's a pulse.
Jersey style, welcome to downtown Detroit. Let's give a warm welcome to this group. It's called Cradle.
I remember the drummer at the time saying, we have to get serious. We have to say something. We have to write our own stuff. We have to get political. We have to do that. Why? To me, it took the joy out of the band, and this is why I was never comfortable in it.
We're looking for a record deal, and I'm telling you, it was harder than hard in those days. No matter how good we were, no matter what we did, the executives, the suits, they wouldn't sign you. And they were scared you'd get pregnant or fall in love, that you wouldn't stay serious. It got so hard, and we got so tired of it. And Suzi got impatient.
I was always waiting. From the time Cradle began. In fact, in all honesty, from the time the band began, when I was 14, I was waiting for my shot. Mickey Most flew over from England with Jeff Beck to record at Motown. And my brother, who was kind of semi-managing Cradle at the time, helping us out a bit, he found out he was in town, said, come see this all-girl band.
My brother had set up Mickey Most coming in. He was always trying to push us. And we did our thing.
We were doing the show and Nancy was singing, and then I waltzed up, and I remember it, Attitude City, you know? Gonna do one I wrote, Brain Confusion, just like that, you know? And when we were done playing, he went like this. Went to the back of the hall, and he said, how would you like to make an album? And I said, yeah, I would like that. I said, what do you do? Complete bullshit. What do you do? He said, I'm a producer. I went, oh, are you? I played it dumb. Oh. I guess he liked my attitude. And then he said, we talked a bit, and he said, would you like to come over to Motown tonight? Just you. I said, okay. So I went over to Motown. This is the studio, Studio 8, Motown. Made all the hits here. He brought me here with Jeff Beck and Cozy Powell into this studio, and we jammed down here on this floor. And we did a song called Sissy Strut. But Mickey asked my brother to fly to New York.
He called me into New York, made an offer. I had to go back and tell the sisters.
An offer was made through my brother for Suzi, and that he wanted just her.
Mickey went back and told my dad and Patty that Mickey Most only wanted me and not the band. And the decision was made not to tell me about it because they wanted him to take the band, which wasn't really a very nice thing to do because you're preventing somebody from following their path, and that's never okay.
Patty wanted it really bad. So there would have been more feelings, you know, and there were.
I did grow up in a loving family. You know, we were all close in our way. My mom and dad were great and everything. It was pretty idyllic until I started to get a little bit older and needed to get away. They stayed. They kept Cradle going for 2 years. Patty went and joined Fanny.
Her impression of how we might have even felt with her leaving is very different than how I felt.
It devastated them, you know, and it devastated me emotionally. I was in bits that I was leaving, but I still was going. I astroplane towards heaven's door, soaring higher in my mind. On the wings of an angel, I fly into the light, leaving the rest behind. I went to London with that bass guitar that weighs more than me, a little suitcase, and I lived in this room about as big as just here, tiny bed, a sink, a cracked mirror, no toilet, place to hang your coat. I lived there. I came from this beautiful house in Grosse Pointe with a Cadillac out in the driveway, home-cooked food, to a little tiny room with no money, no friends, no family. I didn't do anything. I didn't know anybody, didn't go anywhere. And that was probably the lowest point in my life. Mickey gave me my shot. I was determined I was going to make it, no matter what. But I very often cried myself to sleep. Pounded the floor, crying, missing, crying, missing, crying. But never once did I consider getting on that plane and going back home.
I can't remember if the mum and dad phoned me or I phoned them, either one. And they said, we're a bit worried about Suzi coming to London. I said, listen, don't worry, I'll take care of her. So from that day onwards, I've always felt a bit responsible for her. I never forget, we were in bed one night, it was the early hours of the morning, and Suzi phoned and said to Mickey, I'm not well. And he jumped up and he got all these medical things together and rushed over there to her.
He was a father figure. I mean, she had a great father, so it wasn't like she was looking for a new dad. But in terms of the business, he looked over her.
So I'm alone in London, missing my family, but determined to make it. And they had a Thanksgiving dinner, and my dad even said, do you want to come back? And I hated to fly, and I said no. And I didn't want to go back until I had a hit. It was a big thing. And then my dad set up a little tape recorder. He started conversations with people, kind of like egging them on to say things, And my dad sent me that tape, and I put it on, all excited.
Suzi's a good bass player. I don't think she's that great.
I don't think Suzi is that great a bass player. I think
Suzi
she's
is
good
sloppy. Now,
all
come
around,
on.
man.
Suzi is sloppy. She's
Suzi-
very sloppy.
she's not a
She can't
technically
be
great
sloppy
bass
when
player.
she doesn't want to be sloppy. She still is. That's one of her faults. She'll admit it. If she would ask her on the phone, she'll admit that.
She has to go slower.
It was like not nice things. And I thought, first of all, why would you all say these things? And second of all, why did you send it? And I talked to one person about this, and he said, maybe your dad was just plain mad that you went without the rest of the girls. And I could kind of understand my dad's thinking. He was a family man. 5 kids, I love you all equally. You're all talented, you're all beautiful. That's how he felt. So maybe I really did anger him. And I've talked to Patty about it. And she said, well, maybe there was some dark areas in my soul after you left for quite a while. She said, I probably had a lot to get rid of, yes.
For Suzi, she always had a drive and an ambition to be a rock star and a successful musician. And so she was going to do it whatever it took. I mean, you don't see that ambition in a lot of people. Some people are like, I'm just here for my music. She was like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be a big star.
And to make it, you have to be that determined. You can't let anything stand in your way. I wanted it that bad. I wanted it.
When you're young, you just live and breathe that determination. But it's true that unless you have that kind of drive, focus, and ambition, maybe you'll get lucky, but you're probably not going to get to the heights you dream of. I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted.
Mickey called me up and he said, Bill, I'd like you to, I've discovered this new girl singer, and I'd like you to do all their press. And she was squatting in the middle of the room with all this sort of fuzzy hair and everything. And straight away there was something different. She was nothing like the singers you're used to getting around. And she was sort of totally herself. There are some people who have something special about it.
Right. When you go into this bridge, it has to be a complete contrast to the verse. All right, look, I tell you what we'll do. Have a go with the guitar. Let me just hear what sounds with the bass, because if I have an idea of what the bass line is going to be like in the middle, it gives me an idea of what I should be looking for when we do the arrangement.
He knew what I wasn't. He didn't know what I was. And we were always trying to find it. And I knew I was a rocker. He knew I was a rocker too, but he wasn't quite sure how to put it on to a record. So we had a few different tracks we did in the studio. We worked with different people. Just wasn't getting there.
You can come up with one little idea, a little one, telephone me, and play it to me over the phone. And if it's any good, you can follow it on. There's no point in you finishing the whole thing and then me going, no, I don't like it. You know, do line by line, and if I like it, and then it's terrific. Okay.
All right.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Don't forget, don't let me down. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I was getting fed up that nothing was happening.
He made a record with her, and curiously, it went to #1 in Portugal.
Age of 16, I was on the road, doing things you've never seen.
I thought that was really bizarre.
And I've been used, I've been confused, trying to live the life I lead.
I think there was probably a moment after about a year of probably living like we all did in the squalor of some bedsit land in London, where you start to go, something's got to change here.
I said to Mickey, I need a band. I insisted on that. I said, I got to do gigs. I'm not happy. I can't just be sitting in my hotel room writing songs. Nothing's happening.
At the time, I was still playing in a band called the Nashville Teens. I was just about going to bed in my little bedsit in Notting Hill Gate. And I got a phone call on the house phone, which means everyone in the place used the same payphone. Boyo, you've got to come over to my place because Suzi needs a guitar player. And I said, Suzi? Suzi who? Suzi Quatro. So over I went, and I walk in, and Suzi was sitting on the floor playing Scrabble, and just sort of looked up, that sort of deal. Small, sort of scruffy lady from America, basically. Pretty.
We fell in love. He was protective of me. Mickey always said if I hadn't been, in love with my big guitar player, that he would have had to hire me a bodyguard, but then he was pretty handy with his fists. The band was coming together. We were getting a sound, all my own songs, and they were all boogie based.
With the Quattro band, it was almost instant. I don't know why, it was just the right people together.
And then we went on the Slade tour. I was the opening act, 20 minutes I had, all original material.
Now in those days, for a support actor to be on with Slade, it was like being thrown to the lions. And she definitely held her own. I thought, this is a lady with guts. And you could see it was going to work, it was going to happen for her.
Waiting for the storm to break. The labor is long. I hope it's worth the wait.
We were at home one evening, the phone rang, and it was Nicky Chin. And he just said to Mickey, we make hit records and we want to come in and see you. So Mickey liked his approach. It took a bit of balls to do that, so Mickey said, fine, be at the office tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. I knew the kind of stuff Nicky and Mike were recording, and I said to Mickey, I think Chin and Chapman would be a good producer for Suzi. And he said, oh. And then I heard him on the phone the next morning organising it.
He said to me, Mike, you know Suzi Quatro, right? I said, yeah, I've met her a few times in the office. And he goes, I've been recording her for the last months. I can't get a handle on what it is that I need to cut with her. I'm confused. Would you like to write a song for her and produce it with her?
Mike Chapman showed up at Rack Records, said, bring the band down, play your set. So we played our live set, which was all sort of boogie type stuff and a bit of rock and roll. Okay, he said, I've got a few ideas. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Well, he didn't. He called us the same night. Said, back in tomorrow, I think I've got it.
They went and they wrote Can the Can. Mickey listened to it. He went, yeah.
I could go through 100, 200 songs a day, and there'll be one that if it's a demo form or somebody playing the piano, as soon as it starts, something happens. You get like goose pimples. You just know. And you say, that's it, that's the one.
I knew she was a bass player, and I knew that Mickey wasn't really doing much with the bass on the records that he was cutting with her. It was focusing on her face and her voice and her 19-year-old appeal. Can to Can made the bass playing a very major part of it, because that dum da dum da dum.
Very hard and driving and cool like that, you know.
And I remember he said, sing the vocal here. And I did. And he went, now sing it here. And I did. And he said, now sing it here. And I did. And I said, Mike, that's the top of my chest voice. He said, that's the key. I went, what? He said, yeah. I said, why? He said, because in that range, your voice takes on a very special quality.
The Mickey Mo's thought it was slightly too slow, so they actually sped it up. That's why Suzi's voice sounds a little bit edgy when you know, on them top notes.
Mickey said, we need to wear, you have to see what you're going to wear. He said, I think you're going to have a number one. What do you want to wear? And I said, leather. He was against it. And I insisted because I'm such an Elvis fan. I said, I'm wearing leather. So he said, okay, jumpsuit.
I never forget when Mickey sat down at our dining room table and he drew a leather catsuit. And he said, that's what I want Suzi to wear on stage, like the all-in-one leather. I said, how did you come up with that? He's from the film Barbarella with Jane Fonda. So he said, we'll base it on that.
When I did my first photo session with the record playing in the background, I was in the studio with Garrett Mankiewicz. The song was on. I had my first jumpsuit on. And a pivotal moment in my life, because he said, give me that Suzi Quatro look. And everything came, and I went, bang, pivotal moment. The record, the suit, the look. And when I saw that picture back, I always remember that moment happening. You want a Suzi Quatro look? All of a sudden, I had a Suzi Quatro look. I became Suzi Quatro in that instant.
We did Top of the Pops on the Tuesday, and I think it was shown on Thursday from memory. Everyone watched Top of the Pops then. Everybody, you know, it was like the Holy Grail sort of thing.
Everybody was fighting for a slot on Top of the Pops. And when you got it, you thought, yes, the foot is in the door.
So make the stand for your man, honey. Try to can the can. Put your man in the can, honey. Get up while you can. Can the can. Can the can. If you can. Well, can the can.
All I heard was, can the can. I mean, that's all I heard. Everything else was just like little neurons and synapses exploding in my brain. I mean, my brain literally exploded.
And everybody says to me that they were in shock. That was their first, and they went, what the hell is that?
Wednesday, we were walking around a load of nobodies still, and we watched Top of the Pops in our little black and white telly, Suzi and me in our little flat. Of course, it came out and went bloody apeshit. Just like that. Bloody hell. We're going to have a beer.
Oh my God, yeah, I can remember going into the pub to celebrate after our first Top of the Pop appearance. And I honestly had no idea what to expect. And we walked in, and people started screaming, that's the girl, that's the girl. Absolute mayhem.
I thought, oh shit. That was scary.
So I ran out the door, and I realized in that moment that that was the end of my previous life.
She is super fierce, and she's just being herself. She's not really threatening. She's just got these dudes behind her, and she's totally in charge. And she's this firecracker who is just throwing down with the talent and the energy and the youthfulness. And It's incredibly empowering, I think.
And Suzi's tiny. She's a tiny little thing, you know? It's like, wow, all that thunder coming out of this little girl.
And there's the fact that I've never seen a woman with an instrument in a band. It's never, ever occurred to me that that could happen, that could be.
You could see where her impact was in like the imagery of a lot of female musicians.
And there have been so many female musicians that have followed Suzi Quatro. So she was very much out on her own as a female singing and playing an instrument and fronting a band. And there weren't many, I don't know if there were any when she came out.
The basic sort of rock and roll, roots rock music that Suzi Quatro was doing kind of had a big part in informing what came after, which was kind of, you know, punk rock.
She wore the jumpsuit, she wore leather, she had, you know, a non-fussy hairdo. You know, she was a natural beauty. She didn't wear a lot of makeup.
People who are attractive and they're not playing the sexy card, that makes them even sexier.
She just had this like perfect little pouty, innocent face, was just adorable.
Maybe girls were trained to not aspire to those things, to say, like, I can't do that. And it takes a Suzi Quatro to come along to say, this is possible.
I was at the same time trying to get Tina to be part of our band, even back when I was in college.
I would help him do anything to advance his career, amusement, whatever he wanted it to become. But I couldn't conceive of myself doing it. I played folk guitar and flute and English handbells.
Tina said very wisely, oh, I don't know, that rock and roll, that's like for young men. That's not like for nice girls. I said, oh, that's not true. Look at this, Suzi Quatro, and look, she's playing the bass guitar and singing. And look at this cool outfit she's wearing, you know? And listen to this, she's really rocking out. She can really do it, just like a guy can, maybe even better.
Suzi was raw. She came from a place so deep inside, so unmistakable, that she did far more than show that women could play music. She showed us that we could be who we were if we believed enough in ourselves, because with Suzi there was never a question.
When I was in my early teens, I'd go to the teen club and I put my dime in and I'd listen to 48 Crash.
Crash is like her signature song. More than Can the Can, more than Devil Gate Drive. That's one of her best performances ever. And of course, I'm singing on all those choruses. It's me and her and Lenny, the three of us doing all the backgrounds on there. I mean, so it was like a big party.
There was a lot of negativity because Suzi was a female, and she wasn't Cilla Black or Lulu or your normal female singer. She had the audacity to play the bass and play it very bloody well. She had the audacity to sing rock and roll and do it very well. And she also had the audacity to wear leather clothes and kick ass.
The way she moved and played bass like a real bass player, not with a pick. She just reached down and plucked those strings like there was no tomorrow, and singing at the same time, which is really hard to do.
The British press love the underdog, and as soon as you make it big, they pick you to pieces, and that's exactly what happens with reviews of shows and records, etc.
A lot of the writers on the New Musical Express were very political. They obviously were all students at uni somewhere and a bit sort of lefty sort of, and a lot of them people just couldn't understand that a female could have that sort of success that men had. That's for men, it's not for women.
I was selling millions of records, you know? And anybody with success is going to get some of the doubters and trying to put you in a box or whatever. I had plenty of people who said, wow, and I've had other people who said, oh, manufactured. If you know me at all, one thing I could never be is manufactured.
You'll never lose.
For her to really make it the way that she has so far shows the mettle of the woman, because at that time rock was a male-orientated business.
Just before you sit down, shouldn't we look at the rear of the ear?
Oh, I guess so, yes.
What Suzi Quatro must have went through in that time, like thinking about like through this fucking 70s. But what we are witnessing today is actually just a residue of when it was really okay, when a woman couldn't say shit.
I didn't ever think of myself, I didn't then and I don't now, as a girl musician. I think it's because I don't do gender. So I wasn't up there like a women's liber and, hey, I'm a girl, look what I can do. That wasn't my attitude, it's just, here I am. Here I am.
She has transcended her gender. I think she is now just considered an icon, at least to most people I know, consider Suzi Quatro an icon. I know now for L7, when we're interviewed, gender rarely comes up. It was constantly back in the day. So I could imagine Suzi Quatro was really just like so tired of that topic because she probably didn't give a shit.
And that's why we wanted to be like her, to have that kind of power and belief in ourselves, which she just, it poured out of her. And when you're a young girl, you want what she has.
I'm the wild one. Yes, I'm the wild one. I'm the wild one. Yes, I'm the wild one.
It was a perfect place for her to slot into that whole scene, you know, that glam rock thing. She wasn't glam rock, but she was part of that movement.
We weren't a glam band, you know. I've never worn lipstick on anything. The only one that wore makeup was Suzi, and that would be for a TV show or a photo session.
She was challenging Mark Bolan. She was challenging Slade, David Bowie, Sweet for the #1 spot. So, yeah, she was almost an integral part of the glam rock scene.
Mike was always full of ideas. He thought things through very well, and also Pete Coleman, the engineer that he used all the time, knew what Mike wanted.
A big part of my interest in having Mike Chapman produce Blondie was the fact that he wrote songs like Ballroom Blitz or Can to Can or 48 Crash.
He is a taskmaster, but he used to come in with jodhpurs, a metal helmet like MacArthur or somebody, you know, with a riding crop. Well, you know, I think we should try it again.
He doesn't take any bullshit from anybody. He will crack that whip till he gets exactly what he wants. He's got it in his head.
How did the Suzi Quatro songs happen? We looked very deeply into Suzi's character before we ever wrote any songs. She's the type of person that needs something wild. She's a wild personality, and at the same time in her private life she's very quiet, but on a stage she sort of turns into a Mr. Hyde.
I was so inspired. I was like, let me at it, you know, knocking them out one after the other. Devil Gate Drive came next, and that was, in some ways, the biggest hit of them all.
Hey, y'all wanna go down to Devil Gate Drive? Yeah!
And one of the ones we used to play a lot in my club was Devil Gate Drive, because at the opening line of the song is,
Welcome to the dive.
Mickey Most had said to me, it's a long flight. I don't care what you wear on the flight. You put your leather clothes on when you get off that airplane because you're legend. And I went, okay. So I walked, this is my first, time with all the cameras. I loved it.
Hey, it's an English band with an American lady.
Yeah.
How long have you been together?
I've been together all my life.
Ah, now you're talking.
How long do you think you can keep on performing to the extent that you are at the moment?
Until they don't want to see me no more.
And how long do you think that's going to be?
I don't know. Probably till I look old and wrinkled, you know.
Well, how would you describe your image?
Pardon?
How do you feel about this reception here today, Susie?
That was very nice.
Where the hell have you been, Susie? We've been here for 2 hours.
We've been trying to get our baggage.
Hey, do you know we've got an escort for you?
Huh?
We've got a motorcycle escort for you.
Yeah?
Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
The first memory was being met by all these Hells Angels at the airport. And they're the real deal in Australia. It's not like the guys over here that go home to mum at night. These were the real deal. There was a lot of them and they were very scary.
It's the first single, Can the Can. It was #1 record in England within 3 weeks. In Australia, the album sold 200,000 copies, more than the Beatles for a single album, and it's still selling. She hasn't made it big in the United States yet, that's her next goal. But in Britain and Europe, she's the first lady of rock.
The roar that went up in Melbourne, I've never heard anything like it.
Even though we had enormous fucking amps, enormous PA, it was never loud enough to get over the audience screaming and shouting.
Hi, this is Suzi Quatro, and I want to wish all my fans in Australia Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and buy my records so I can buy all my new cars and houses.
And you feel that at the moment your strongest following, or one of your strongest followings, is perhaps here?
Yes, Australia, and we go a lot to Germany, we go a lot to wherever. We go to a lot of places all the time.
There are reports that you haven't actually made it in America yet. What do you say to those reports?
Well, I was just going to swear, but I better not.
When I came home in 1974 for my first tour in America, I'd had 3 or 4 hits, so I'm coming home successful, which is what I wanted to do. And I hadn't been back since '71, so it was like a real emotional thing for me coming back to my family home. Oh my God. My little heart was pounding, and I was a little bit nervous because I had left everybody and I didn't know how it was going to be. And I grabbed Lenny's hand and I dragged him downstairs to the basement where my bedroom was. My clothes were gone. Albums were gone, pictures were gone. The whole room was like stripped where I used to sleep. I said, "Where's my clothes?" to my mom. She said, "Oh, Patty cut them up and made them into outfits for herself." So they kind of like just wrote me out of their lives, like I didn't exist anymore. That was a real wake-up call. That was real hard. I always felt sorry for Patty. I always felt that she thought I took something away from her. I didn't take anything away from Patty.
Maybe you feel bad that you left the family, left them out. Well, then all you're doing is projecting your own shit.
There was resentment. I think on one level they were all very proud, but on another level, there's resentment. I think they think I have the life of Riley. You come back and expect, "Hi," and everybody's like, that's hard.
I think where the altering would happen, first of all, is if she changed a lot, which I don't feel she did. But it would also be altered if I put stock in having a famous sister, and I don't.
Suzi, you'll never peg her completely. She will protect herself. She's that way.
Is love enough to share the load or heal the child inside? Or is this never-ending road the road where something's died?
Let's hear it for 5 feet of shit-kicking rock and roll, Suzi Quatro.
She did a club tour in '74 after the first album came out, and then came back in late in '74 and opened for Uriah Heep, and then came back in '75 for the Alice Cooper Welcome to My Nightmare tour, which was a big tour.
We just, looked around and just said, when somebody says, "Who do we want on the tour?" and she was available, we went, "Well, Suzi's great." She wasn't going to let an audience down.
I went and I saw her open for Alice Cooper, and I was just in absolute awe of this woman, this tiny little powerhouse with that bass swung so low, doing a Chuck Berry type thing across this massive stage of the Forum.
We had some really good times. It was probably something like 6 gigs in a row and then a day off, and another 6 gigs in a row and a day off.
I did a British tour, an American tour, Italian tour, Scandinavian tour, Japanese tour, and now an Australian tour, and then New Zealand and Indonesia.
Do you ever have any time for rest in all that?
Yeah, a couple hours here and there.
You were always touring, and the bigger you were, the more touring you did. So 65 cities in 72 days, when you're that age, you're indestructible. You're 20 years old, you're 21, 22 years old, and you're traveling, and there's an audience every night full.
It would be back to somebody's room after every gig, and out would come the bottle of scotch, and we'd be out till God knows what time, and then crawl back in the van or on a plane the next morning and go and do it all again.
Suzi Quatro, she drank beer, smoked cigarettes, things like that. I never ever saw any hard drugs backstage.
I wasn't a sex, drugs, and rock and roll girl whatsoever. Nope, never did any of that. I didn't feel the need to live the rock star off the stage. Quite happy to do my job, to be who I am on stage, come home and lead a normal life.
Your image on stage is all sort of leather, very rocky. You ever thought of doing anything else? Any other sorts of thoughts occurred to you?
Well, yeah, I always have this fantasy of going out in a low-cut evening gown, singing a love song.
Are you ever going to do it?
I'm only joking.
I can remember when we first got the first Rolling Stone cover. I thought, this is it, America beckons,
When I saw her on the cover of that one, I just went, wow, you really arrived now. That was a litmus for me, that if you can get on there, you're doing something.
I started reading about a club in LA called Rodney's English Disco that played all the British glitter music that American kids never heard.
It was about, I'd say 1975. when I started going to Rodney's and also the Sugar Shack. Man, could I dance to Can, and Your Mama Won't Like Me. Ooh. Was really the discos and the underground that was making it happen before radio caught on to her.
I once gathered up a lot of we called the kids at the club glitter critters. I gathered up a bunch of glitter critters. We went to the LA airport and met Suzi Quatro and her band.
And musicians were listening to Suzi Quatro. And a lot of girls picked up guitars because of Suzi Quatro. A lot of girls picked up drumsticks and basses because of Suzi Quatro. It had never occurred to them before that it was a viable thing to do.
Joan Jett, you know, was one of the girls that kind of looked at Suzi Quatro as a prototype because she was the real deal.
Joan Jett looked exactly like Suzi Quatro to the point where we had to dye her hair, we had to change her clothes, we had to get her to move differently because she was picking up all Suzi's moves, like the marching with the legs and, you know, flipping of the hair. And Joan, you're great at what you do. You be Joan and you let Suzi be Suzi.
She was, you know, integral to me figuring out who I was, finding my own style, and, you know, becoming my own person. But certainly getting strength from her to do that.
We came out to LA and got friendly with Joan Jett and some of the Runaways. And Joan, of course, was a complete devotee. She was really, you know, a huge fan of Suzi's.
All the bands then used to stay in the Hyatt House on Sunset, which was called the Riot House. As soon as you walk in, Joan Jett was there, come running up, give me an autograph. Every day she was there.
Look, if you drag her back home, she's only gonna run away again. I know runaways. I've been with them for 3 years.
There was a great magazine out of Germany called Bravo, and they always had features, Suzi Quatro on the cover. She was big all over Europe. They put out special issues like Bravo poster. I'd get all my posters and put on the wall at my English disco. And one poster that they had was Suzi Quatro in a leather bikini. And Joan Jett used to always sit in the booth where that poster was, but somehow that poster was missing.
I have my own posters. I wouldn't steal from Rodney.
The key to success in the States has always been radio. If you get on the radio, you got a shot.
We're in radio stations in America non-stop. You know, sometimes probably 4 or 5 at a time. And you've flown into the city, before you even go to the hotel, you're in a radio station, you're in another radio station, you're in another radio station. Of course, in America at the time, the way to get a record played there was to send the guys out on the road with a suitcase full of bleak cocaine and get everyone high, and then they might play your record a few times.
Mickey had humongous success in the U.S. with the Animals, the Yardbirds, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that the people that he was associated with didn't understand Suzi. He just went to his go-to guys, and there's nothing wrong with going to a guy like Clive Davis. And I remember sitting with Clive in a bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel, playing him Can the Can and playing him 48 Crash. And I remember he had all these young A&R guys in the room and saying, we can make this a huge hit here. His promo guys couldn't get it played.
I thought she'd become big in America, and it never happened.
When I heard those British records, I thought she was the best chick I ever heard. You know, that was amazing. But that style of music, for some reason, didn't achieve what I thought was a no-brainer.
I think it was too soon. It was just too soon for the industry, too soon for the market. Just wasn't done.
People weren't ready for that in the States. It was a lot more macho, sort of, you know, Lynyrd Skynyrd type of attitude.
The public here didn't see that British glam rock type music as appealing. There was something that they were missing, something lost in translation. And after that Alice Cooper tour, there was no real push to get her back to the States. She wasn't put on opening for the next big thing, you know? I couldn't understand it. I didn't get it.
I don't think she ever got over not being able to be in her own country and make it as big, because she should have been, by rights, huge here.
We got married in England.
We bought our first house near his parents. We were very close, we were very tight, we were a unit. You know, neither of us, we weren't tempted.
He may have seemed diminutive in personality, but I think that his steadfastness and stature, you know, was really important to her.
And I was always aware that it was Suzi, Suzi, Suzi. And I remember trying very hard in our private life to make him the important one. And if you ask him that question, he'll tell you that he was aware I was doing that. I didn't want him to ever be Mr. Quatro.
Mr. Udo, who was the promoter, he said, I'd like you to do something for me. What's that, Mr. Udo? Well, you just got married in England when it was supposed to have been a secret, but some bastard opened their gob, you know. He said, some of the Japanese fans won't be too happy, so if we do a pretend wedding in Japan, it'll probably appease them all. All right, okay. Not knowing what was going to happen, of course. Having to wear a fucking kimono and a pair of shoes that were 3 times too small and waddle about like a fucking geisha girl. So we did that, and just as the Runaways showed up into town, and of course they'd been invited, and they're looking at us like, what the fuck you doing? You'll find out soon enough. It's called promotion in Japan.
Oishina. Saki rocks Oseki.
Slowly but surely, I felt that Nikki was taking advantage of my skills. I didn't want to feel that way, but he made me feel that way.
I think perhaps Mike wasn't too happy that Nikki's name was on getting a writing credit on the songs, you know. You know, Nikki's not a musician, he's a businessman.
I wanted to take on America, and he didn't even understand the first thing about the market in America. And so I moved.
At that point, he decided to split from Nikki, and he wasn't going to work with anybody that he worked with before, so everybody was just, that's it, I'm done, I have a new life. In the contract with Mickey, I had to have an album per year, and until Mike did whatever he's going to do, there was a gap, so Mickey said, okay, I will produce an album with you. Contractually, we were doing an album, and Mickey Most produced Agoraphobia. Mickey did not know how to produce me. And it was okay, the album was not bad, but Mickey doesn't know how to produce my edge.
It's not the sound they want to hear from, you know, Suzi and the band, it's not.
So, Joan Jett in the studio, and Suzi Quatro. Hey, how you doing?
Fine.
Suzi, it's been a while since we've seen you.
Couple years.
Right. Suzi, you know that Joan was a big fan of yours?
Yep.
She used to
I
like...
used to see her at all my shows.
Right.
And in the Continental Hot House lobby.
Right. And now Joan's a rock star now. She has
That's
records.
nice.
Yeah. So Suzi, when is there going to be another Suzi Quatro concert in Los Angeles?
Very soon. As
Very
soon as there's a
soon?
new album out. We're just in between record companies in America at the moment. That's why there's been a little bit of a quiet thing.
A place where you live inside your soul. Nobody knows. Nothing shows at all. The answers you seek are waiting there, right or wrong. This belongs to you.
I had a call from a woman who worked in casting at Happy Days, and she said, hey, do you think Debbie Harry would like to come read for this role on Happy Days? And I said, that part doesn't sound like Debbie Harry at all, but it sounds exactly like Suzi Quatro.
My oldest daughter had decoupaged her bathroom with Rolling Stone covers. And so I told her about the character, and she said, come with me, sit on the toilet, and look over there. And there was a picture of Suzi on the cover of Rolling Stone.
In my mind, the character was somebody who was very cute and sexy. We didn't like hot. We weren't let's have girls with large breasts kind of television show. We were, let's have pretty girls and sexy girls. So we were looking for somebody who was very sweet and cute, and certainly Suzi was.
She's gone to Hollywood.
It was very hip. The Fonz was so cool. And then all of a sudden, here's Tuscadero, you know, leather Tuscadero. And it's Suzi, and we all went, that's Suzi. That's our girl.
Over here, Leather. Oh, there she is now. Hubba, hubba, hubba.
All right, Joni, what's shaking? How?
I knew that she was a rock and roller. What I didn't know was that this incredibly small package would have so much power. There was very little bull when it came to Suzi Quatro.
You can totally see that, you know, like while like Richie Cunningham is miming, playing the saxophone, which is like super cheesy in his varsity sweater, that, you know, she's completely genuine and obviously a real musician.
I'll tell you, a lot of people come up to me and say, yeah, man, I saw you on Happy Days, Leather Tuscadero. And, you know, for the first couple of times, I said, no, that's Suzi Quatro, man. But people were so convinced, no. So after the first few times, I mean, it's like, what do you say?
It did leave a mark, and what it did was it got Mike Chapman motivated to make records with her again.
And we were still talking to Mike, we're still friends. And I said to Suzi, we got to get him on side again. He said, okay, I'll think about writing a song. He phoned us the next day, he said, I've got an idea. Can we get the band over? Yep, when? Now.
This was a possible opening to reintroduce Suzi to the recording world, and Mike jumped on it.
We hadn't even spoken to Mickey Most. I mean, we were signed to him, he didn't even know. Mike sent over the finished cut, and Mickey went, oh, but have a listen then. He weren't happy at all. He weren't happy. And we went in his office and he put it on. Halfway through, he took it off and went, yeah, that's all right, I suppose. And we thought, he's not happy.
If You Can't Give Me Love took off, so we found ourselves back on the road heavily again. Then Stumbling In happened right on the heels of that too.
Our love is a lie, and so we begin, foolishly laying our hearts on the table, stumbling in.
One of my favourite records of hers, Stumbling In, which was a ballad with Chris Norman of Smokey, was a huge hit in America, probably her biggest hit single there, and yet didn't do very well over here.
Stumbling in. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you know these reckless thoughts of mine are following you.
I don't think at that point Britain had quite got used to the idea of Suzi not being a glam rocker in leather trousers and holding a big bass guitar.
Then Nicky Chin went to see the Happy Days people, and he told them that Happy Days was interfering with my kudos as a real rock star, and he didn't think I should do anymore, so I didn't do anymore.
Are you crazy?
Rich, I'll handle this. Are you crazy?
Happy Days was great. I loved it. I loved every minute I was in that show. They did offer me a spin-off, you know, along the same lines of the Leather Tuscadero thing, and I thought, well, I don't mind appearing in Happy Days as this character, but did I really want to make it a spin-off?
Thanks, Milwaukee.
We've turned down Happy Days for the past 2 years.
Right.
Because otherwise I'll be boxed in. That'll be my character. Everybody will say, oh, Suzi does Leather Tuscadero. So we've stopped doing that. I did enough for them for everybody to know I can act. Now we're looking at movie scripts.
She was offered this film based on a true incident in Australia where a gang of bikers take over a town, but she turned that down as well.
Nicky and Mike were both now living in LA.
Thought I was getting rid of him. And he moved about a year and a half later and bought a house 3 doors up on the same street in Beverly Hills. I thought, okay, he's good at business stuff. I know he's good at that. So I said, Nicky, I want to start a record label and you're gonna run it. So I said, Dreamland Records, I'll find the talent, I'll make the records, you run the company. I said to Nicky, you know, it would make sense for the Dreamland brand to have a star on the label. Why don't we sign Suzi?
Mike said to me, I don't want to work with anybody now that isn't on my label. Mike was my producer. Mike wrote a lot of my hits, most of my hits, and I just went, whoa.
She never takes a chance, she doesn't need romance at all. Rock hard. She never takes a chance, she never takes the dance at all. Rock hard. Rock hard. She's rock hard.
Made a deal with Robert Stigwood, huge, millions of dollars. And it was either going to work or that was it.
Nicky didn't think it would. He didn't fancy the idea. And I think they lost a lot of money.
It didn't work, so that was it. And that was the end of the partnership. Because I said, well, you didn't do your job, bye.
Hi, I'm Suzi Quatro. I started on Countdown in 1974, and I'm still going to be there in 1984. Ta-da!
If someone like Suzi had been starting out in the 80s, she would have had mega success through MTV, because then you can see stuff like, you know, Can the Can, #1 in America, I'm sure.
I left America to come over here to make my name, which I did. This half of the world was ready for America, was not. Then I did Happy Days, and then the world from Leather Tuscadero and Happy Days was ready for somebody like Joan Jett to have a hit.
I saw her dancing there by the record machine.
People thought it was me. They called me up from Top of the Pops. Oh, you're back on the screen. I said, no, but you can be mistaken for thinking so. You think you've done it all. You know what you need, what you want. Too clever. I won't get trapped. Not me, cried the fool. Yet here you are. Teddy bear, turn around. Teddy bear, touch the ground. I always wanted kids. Love kids. Love kids. I had as much coverage as Princess Diana on my first child. I was front pages of lots of papers. I'm thinking, why? Because it didn't go along with the image. I'm a normal person. I wanted kids. I wanted a family. And when I left the hospital, there were something like 200 photographers there. I remember Lenny saying to me, don't go all mumsy on me. And I remember thinking, what? Just remember you're Suzi Quatro. And I'm thinking, that's a dumb attitude because, yes, I'm Suzi Quatro, but I'm also Laura's mother. But I guess I'm his livelihood, so he wanted to keep me in that mode.
Who's that singing?
Who's that?
Mom.
That's Mom.
Yeah, Richard.
That's not Richard.
Richard.
Richard. She knows that Mommy is Suzi Quatro. She will point to the TV and say Suzi Quatro. But she knows that that's Mommy, but she also knows that that's Mommy working. And this is Mommy not working. We took her to a show the other night. And she went all the way home. She's going, 48 crash. I didn't want them to be famous person's brats. And I sent them both to normal school. So I tried to make their life very normal. I was brought up normal. I was brought up by great parents. My mother was very strict with me, and I wanted to make sure they were the same. I didn't have any problems being a normal mother. Other people have problems with me being a normal mother. But then it was after the kids. Lenny he went somewhere else. He started to be out every day shooting and going to the pub, and he really kind of separated from me in some way, just kind of was distant. And then when I started rehearsals for Annie, Get Your Gun, I was spreading, and I could see the resentment on Len. He won't tell you this. He'll say he wasn't resentful at all, but I felt it. He just wanted me doing rock and roll, and instead he's hanging around watching me do a musical. This is not who Lenny is. I understand his resentment.
If you'll just step over there, I'll give you a lesson in marksmanship.
You couldn't give me a lesson in long-distance spitting. Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I suppose the fact that she was American helped, certainly with British audiences perhaps. But, you know, no, she can act, she can sing, she's got a great stage presence, and Annie Oakley is the story of a woman like that. It's a sort of 19th century Suzi Quatro, really.
Annie, I suppose you know you're giving up your only bankroll. Shucks, I don't care.
I had always waited my entire life for my dad to praise me. Always with my family, I always waiting for the praise that I never seemed to get. And I remember thinking to myself before the show began, do I want my dad to tell me how great it was? And for the first time ever, I was 36 at this point, I thought, oh, you know, I don't need it. And he came in and he said it. God damn it, Suzi, I'm so proud. I'd never heard those words before. Never.
Unfortunately, when she did Annie Get Your Gun, I was talking a lot to the guy at CBS in London. He was very interested in doing something. As soon as it came out in the press that she was doing Annie Get Your Gun, he just said, you know, if she wants to go that way, it's up to her. You know, I'm not saying anything, but you can't do that and then expect British public to buy rock and roll records from the same artist. It doesn't work. The next stage, pantomime. But for a rock and roller to do a pantomime, it's a kiss of death in the UK. Absolute kiss of death.
I think Lenny began to feel like Mr. Quatro and sort of lost his balls, whatever, you know. He wasn't as involved. She was expanding and she didn't want anybody holding her down. That's her big thing. She didn't want anybody holding her back. Not her own husband, not anybody, not her sisters, anybody. Just keep going, foot on the gas.
I won't be boxed in. I will not be boxed in. What you're trying to do is clip my wings. And how can you do that to any human being on this earth? Just because he fell in love with Suzi Quatro with the bass guitar doesn't mean that's all I was. I wanted projects, I wanted something to do. I found a book of Tallulah by chance. I found a book in the library. It was like it was given to me. Started to read it, and I thought, hey, I can write a musical about this lady.
She'd done so much in rock music, but she wanted to open out even further. So the Tallulah Bankhead musical helped her to do that, really.
I liked it because she seemed to me that nobody got her. Nobody got inside her skin. She had this facade. And I said, I'm going to read these books, every book I can find on her. I'm going to get into her character. She was a little girl. She was lonely. She needed her daddy's love. She didn't get it. She put on this tough facade because Tallulah was a little bit of a wild card before her time. She would swear, she would smoke, she would drink, she was bisexual. She was real larger-than-life character.
She was more distant from the family. We would see her. I went over there a number of times to visit and all that. So did Mom and Dad. And we knew she was having, you know, some issues with her husband, and they were going to split up at some point. But We didn't really get involved in it, and then all of a sudden it happened.
It was hard because I'm a daddy's girl, and I love my dad. And I actually gave him my dog because I didn't want him to be on his own.
It took 6 years for me to go because I'm a Catholic girl. And I had to make sure. I said either the marriage dies or I die, and I chose to live. And so the curtain falls. Applause dies away. Crowds leave the stalls. One bulb lights the stage. 1 minute more I stand, listening to the sound of silence. Once a roar, I feel myself come down.
Suzi scores again in the nick of time and has only one target left.
Suzi created this really wide playing field for herself. She kept herself interested. She branched out into theatre. She always kept touring. She hosted a chat show, acted in TV dramas, had her own radio show, appeared on Absolutely Fabulous.
I'm from Detroit and I don't mess around. Now what do you need? Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Rock and roll?
This woman has so much energy, so much personality, so much talent. It's mind-boggling. She could have done anything. She could have done anything.
And if she wanted to write a book of poetry or a novel, she'd do it.
I'm Suzi Quatro. This is a new series called Quattrophonic.
Suzi Quatro, tonight, this is your night.
Over the years, you've been a trailblazer for other stars who followed you into the rock and roll charts.
Suzi, as you know, you were a real inspiration to me.
The Pretenders' Chrissie Hynde.
And if I can stand on the stage and receive this award, your possibilities are endless. Many dreams have been sold. Many tales have been told. Many years down the road. You reflect as you get older, you reflect a little bit. And could I have done without everything that I did? No. But you reflect on the fact that, yes, indeed, I don't know if compromise is the right word, but there was something that I should have embraced more. I will always have that bit of a empty space in me that I wished I had more time in Detroit, more time just to be a kid. I did always want to run away. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe I regret that now that I spent so many years getting away from it and it was such a perfect time. You know, for some reason, I want to go back into there, and I don't know what that is.
Do you half expect to see that child open the door?
I do. I see little Suzi. I feel little Suzi. I could walk back into that life. You know, I was looking on the sidewalk in front of the house for the chalk, because I used to paint chalk down the sidewalk.
So if little Suzi had opened the door, when you were just staring at your old house and suddenly the door opened and there she was, standing there, you know, what would you say?
Oh, I'd say, stay there and enjoy this as long as you can, because it won't be forever. That's what I'd say. Don't be in such a hurry. Don't run so fast. That's the little girl. Yeah, that's the person I'm trying to address now, again, that little girl. Yeah, I wouldn't tell her not to go. I said, just stop running so fast. You know, you got a little bit of a life yet to live. Because my mother always said she let me go too early. She said to me, you were always going where you were going, my little Susan. Well, I'm telling you now things I promised I'd never say. And I'm taking my chances, I won't fall flat on my face. One more day with my parents, you can take it all. Take it all. Just leave me one guitar. But take the rest. One more day of that unconditional love. Can I be your girl? Don't wanna waste. You can't buy that. No success in the world will ever give you that. Can I share your world? Say that. That doesn't. I'll always be like that. Okay. I need the big Suzi to come in. Suzi Quatro. No, it doesn't work. Okay. Well, I said you'd be free, yes, I told you. No strings attached.
I'd like to introduce my backing singers. Yes, I know that's a bit unusual, but they're not just any old backing singers. In fact, the stress is on the word old. They've been with me for nearly 40 years. That's surprising, isn't it? You know why? Because they're my sisters. Please welcome Patty, Nancy, and Arlene.
There's a relationship that you want from your sisters, and they are reluctant sometimes to fulfill that.
Yeah, they are. I agree with that. Doesn't stop me from wanting it and doesn't stop me from trying. It was Australia that gave me my big lesson. The last Australian tour. Sold out. The audiences are great. The band is great. I'm at the peak of my performing powers. I'm going for it. And I still needed my sister to say how great she thought I was. She just came to Brisbane and said, "Good show." Okay. And could you elaborate? This is an all-A student who knows every language and all these wonderful words, and all she could think of was "good show." And again, why did I need it? Well, the truth is I did.
I will never be a fan of Suzi Quatro. Ever. It doesn't matter. And even though I totally admire every bit of it, and I think she's going to have more success, but I'll never be her fan because she's my sister.
It all comes down to self-love. You know, no matter what you do in life, you got to give that to yourself internally. You can't always get it externally. You just can't. And if you base it on that, the fans and all that, they're not going to be with you on your deathbed. They're not going to be there.
It's important to be validated by the ones you love the most. There's the reason. Boom, I just said it. You want to be validated by the ones you love the most. Maybe this is their payback. Maybe because I did go off and didn't take them all with me. Maybe they just refuse to give me what I want because I didn't give them what they wanted. And I think this is the peace I found now. I now realize that it doesn't matter. I can go for the rest of my life waiting for it, and it ain't gonna happen. So I just have to be happy with that. I realize now that I made it in spite of them, but more important, I made it because of them. And I know this is a dichotomy, but it is both things together.
You can always look back with regret. If only I'd have done this. But when you look at what you have, you realize none of it was a mistake. And Suzi did not make any mistakes. The mistake is that people have overlooked her. That's their mistake.
I think that Suzi Quatro has been an essential player in music. I think that she was an omnipresent force of talent.
She's still out there, and she's still holding it together. You know, that's something there. That is something.
She really should be one of those people that are much more discussed, much more in the lexicon of musicians. Certainly her position, you know, being so early and being like the first woman leading a band, having hits like that.
That Suzi had a dream in Detroit, and all these years later, she is still living that dream. That is amazing.
I think that the good part of it far outweighs the bad part. The bad part is you're going to at some point pay serious dues. You're going to at some point be very lonely. You're going to at some point look at all the temptations and think, oh gosh, I wish I could do that, because you're in a relationship, but you can't. You're going to at some point, in fact, at many points, you're going to be talking to people and thinking to yourself, are you talking to me because I'm Suzi Quatro, or do you like me? These are all the costs of fame. You're going to sometimes go out your door looking like a piece of shit, and somebody's going to come up and say, hey, aren't you Suzi Quatro? And you're going to think, oh, God. You're going to be having a wee in a cubicle, and somebody's going to put a piece of paper under the door with a pen and ask you to sign. That actually happened. So there are intrusive bits. I'm obligated to everybody who has ever bought my records, everybody who has ever been at a show. I'm obligated to be the best I can be. If they come and see me at a show and they want an autograph, I am obligated. How dare I be in a bad mood for my own personal reasons and snub one of these people? And that's my attitude I take to my performing as well. Doesn't matter what's going on in my life. If I'm doing a show, I'm doing a show. And you're going to get all of me. Every single bit I have to give.
As far as her music goes, it's all she can do to keep her heart going. You know, it's her one true love.
Richard, my son, for 25 years has wanted to write some songs with me, and he's mentioned it periodically. Just never felt right. And finally, about 6 months ago, he came to me and he said, Mom, I really need to write some songs with you.
You know, just then, before you stopped, you hit a nice...
All right, let me just play with this a couple times. He said, I want to remind you who you are. And I went, what does he mean? And he just gave me these riffs, things I don't normally, and areas I don't normally do. And he somehow pushed my Suzi Quatro button. He pushed this part of me that I just went, whoosh. He wanted to make it me, but now.
You can't take away my soul. You can't break me 'cause I'm in control. You can't take my heart, my mind. This time I won't let go. You can't take away my soul. No, 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 no. No, no, no.
I see the world in all its glory. The story has now been told. And through my eyes, I greet this life and allow my truth to unfold. I remember those summer nights, driving in cars, getting in fights, bar after bar, night after night.
All those Detroit city lights. And all those long hot summer days, lying around in a purple haze, dreaming about being a star, driving a big car, money to earn, money to burn, standing in the shadows, waiting for my turn.
Let me be who I am, whatever it may be.
I'm the girl from Detroit City, built up like a cars and gritty. I'm the girl from Detroit City, built nail hard and gritty. I went out to conquer the world, not bad for a girl. I'm a girl from Detroit
I think that I accomplished what I was put on this earth to do. God, I've got 2 kids, 2 beautiful kids actually, beautiful granddaughter, a good second marriage, and even now, you know, women coming up saying, oh, you're my hero, all the time with guys, oh, I had you on my wall. Okay, you can't take it serious. I always say it to Reiner. Reiner always witnesses it. And I say, you know, Reiner, okay, maybe I was a pinup, but the pinup was Suzi Quatro.
Suzi
So after the film crew came from Australia, they came to my house. I did an interview, which I was so thrilled to do, honored to do. Liam, who's the director, turned around, he goes, "You should write a song for this." And I was like, wait a minute, now this is something I would really like to do because there's so much to say. Let's go! Your mama won't like me. Straight from the Motor City, she is one of a kind. Living in leather, you are ahead of your time. You sling that axe so low, sing as if it keeps you alive. Won't you take me to the can down on Devil Gate Drive? Oh, Susie, what a spell you put on me. Red hot rosy, I wanna be free. Rock and roll Rosie, the glycerin queen, the wild one, the only Susie. Rock and roll Rosie, little bitch blue, the wild one, the only Susie Q. She left her home for London, lived in a hotel for a year, stomping the streets to the beat of a heart knows no fear. Oh, Susie, I'm just one in 50 million to be taken by the starlight lady. Rock and roll Rosie, the glycerin queen, the wild one, the only Susie. Rock and roll Rosie, little bitch blue, the wild one, the only Susie. Q-U-A-T-R-O, Q-U-A-T-R-O. Susie, Susie, you rock me to my soul. I'm just one in 50 million. Oh, there ain't no doubt about it. It was you that struck the match. 'Cause I was there and I saw your 48 crash. The guys say it's a man's world as they smirk and drink their stash. But you yell, I'm a rocker, and you can kiss my ass. Rock and roll Rosie, glycerin queen, I'm the wild one, the only Susie. Rock and roll Rosie, little bitch blue, I'm the wild one, the only Susie. Rock and roll Rosie, Roxy Rosie, I'm the wild one, the only Susie. Rock and roll Rosie, Roxy Rosie, I'm the wild one. You're one of a kind. Wow!